Imagine nothing. No light, no darkness, no space, no time, not even a speck of dust. Absolute nothing. You can't even say nothing, because to say nothing, there needs to be a place for that nothing to exist in. But here, even that place doesn't exist. This is the point before everything began. The point where science says nothing definable existed before. Then, about 13.8 billion years ago, something happened that we still haven't fully understood. Something physicists call the Big Bang. But contrary to what many people think, the Big Bang wasn't an explosion in space, because there was no space to begin with. This event created space itself. To put it simply, it was like an infinitely tiny, dense point suddenly started to unfold, stretch, and turn into everything. This point is called the singularity, a place where our laws of physics break down. Not Einstein's relativity, not quantum mechanics, nothing works there. Then, in a fraction of a second, the universe began expanding at a speed far faster than light. This phase is called cosmic inflation. Picture blowing up a balloon at a crazy speed, but instead of air, it's space and time itself stretching out. But here's the big question. What was before the Big Bang? This is where things get tricky, because we don't have a definitive answer. Some scientists say there might have been other universes before ours, and this is just part of a cycle. Others say the laws of physics caused nothing to turn into something. And some say this is the moment you might point to and say, that's where God's hand came in. When the Big Bang kicked off, in the first 0 point, the temperature insanely high, around 10 to the 32nd Kelvin. It was so hot that you couldn't even call it hot, because heat is a relative concept. But here, it was just a chaotic surge of meaningless energy. In those first moments, there were no atoms, not even protons or neutrons. Just a pure sea of energy with fundamental particles bouncing around. This is where quantum mechanics enters the game. Energy can turn into matter, and matter can turn back into energy. That's Einstein's famous E equals mc squared in action. A few seconds later, the universe cooled down a bit. Well, cooled compared to that initial inferno, and the first protons and neutrons formed. These later came together to create the nuclei of hydrogen and helium. About 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the universe cooled enough for electrons to stick to those nuclei, forming the first atoms. This moment is called the recombination era. At that point, light could finally move freely. This light is what we now call the cosmic microwave background CMB, a kind of snapshot of the universe's childhood that we can still see with telescopes today. But here's something important. The universe was mostly uniform at first, but not perfectly. Tiny irregularities in density caused some areas to gather more mass, making their gravity stronger. These tiny imperfections, over billions of years, turned into galaxies and stars. In other words, if the universe had been perfectly smooth and uniform, there'd be no story to tell, no stars, no planets, no us. After a few 100 million years, the first stars lit up. These stars, as they burned, created heavier elements, and when they ran out of fuel and exploded, supernovae, they scattered those elements into space. Those elements later became part of the next generation of stars and planets. And yes, even our bodies. That famous phrase, "We are made of stardust," comes exactly from this. About 4.6 billion years ago, one of these clouds of gas and dust, leftovers from old stars, started to collapse. Gravity pulled everything toward the center, and it got so hot that the sun was born. Around this fiery newborn, a huge disk of rock and gas spun. Bit by bit, these rocky pieces collided and grew bigger, like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting fatter and fatter. One of these clumps got so big that its gravity pulled in more rocks, and that became Earth. But not the green and blue Earth we know today. No, back then, it was a molten hellscape bombarded by meteorites and asteroids. And here's something cool. About 4.5 billion years ago, an object the size of Mars smashed into Earth. The impact was so intense that a chunk of Earth's crust was flung into space, and over time, that debris formed the moon. So, the moon is basically the child of Earth and that cosmic intruder. A few 100 million years later, Earth's surface started to cool. Relentless rains came and oceans formed. Now the big question was, where did life come from? The youngsters of that era, molecules, mixed together in these oceans. Sunlight, volcanic